And first one that we have is Hank Primus and his quick tips, but Phil is filling in for Hank tonight. So Phil, I'll turn it over to you.
This is a continuation of our discussion about, how to use PowerPoint to generate essentially images, and then how to get those images printed. So everything we've talked about so far has been around how do you get to the point of having something to print, and how do you format the pages, et cetera. Today, what I want to do is talk a little bit about one way of basically, printing those things out. Now, so I'm going to say this is printing hard signs. So this would be a hard sign, not a decal, but something that you want to print and put on a building. So kind of starting to look at this, this is kind of what triggered this for me. Was I started looking for some ways to get something printed, and I found this is my local camera shop. It's called Mike's Camera. I think most places have something like this. If you go click on the web page, what you find is there's something on there that says get photo prints. And if you click in there, you'll see that there's a red highlighted for printing photos. And if you upload a sheet, and I uploaded an image here, and I've now selected, if you see down on the bottom right, to print that as a matte print. You don't want glossy, shiny. Matte's not, especially after you spray with a couple of coats of dull coat, it actually gets pretty matte, pretty dull. But what I want you to do is, I don't know if you can really see this, but if you look inside that little blue box of little 4x4 matte, it says 39 cents. So essentially you can print a 4x6 high quality print for 39 cents. So to look at kind of how I get to a print like that and what I do, we basically go in and put that together in PowerPoint. Now, as I said, I tend to make these slides big because I know then that I have plenty of resolution for however I want to print them. So if you notice that this slide, if you look at it, it's a 56 by 56 inch slide. That's going to print 6x4. So that's the ratio I'm doing between the two. And I've actually set that 37.33 based on that 6x4 ratio of the final outcome image. If you then look at this image, what you see is some red and blue lines on it. Those are actually drawn on the master. So we think we talked a little bit about masters at one point, but if you go up, you can put in the master of the slides, you can put a background in the master. And that's a series of boxes that are essentially 1 inch wide. And the way I did that was really simple. I made 6 boxes, connected them together, grouped them, and then put them out across the page. And then I copied them, I made them red, and I split them halfway over. So essentially that's a 1 inch and ½ inch grid matrix. So if you look at that picture in the upper left of the image, in fact, I'm going to share, actually change my screen share so you guys can see my mouse. If you look at this image right here, you'll notice that background, blue and red, that's the 24 by 24 inch box. So that image, you can tell, is about 20 by 20 inches. It's about what you'd want to put for a picture on the wall of an office of the owner of the company. This Railway Express sign is a little over 3 feet. So you kind of see the different sizes. By the way, what you do before you print this, because you don't want to print that grid, is over here you can click on Format Background. Remember how we did that? You can click on Remove Background. If you look at the second slide here, over here, this slide, you notice it doesn't have the lines on it that this one does. So basically now you can save this as an image. So if you just go into the basic save, you click Save. You go down and you click on the bottom. When you save it, you can change what it's saved as, change it to like a .png or a .jpeg. I tend to use .pngs, just I've gotten used to. And then what it'll do is it say save just this slide, and you click and you now have an image file that is that single image. So each one of these becomes an image then that you can upload. And by doing that, you now can go get those printed as an individual slide. So to give you an example of kind of how this works, take that same slide image. I think I showed this in a build along in one of my builds a while back. All of these images on the wall in this office came from a single 39-cent 4x6 sheet. And all you do is you cut them out with a razor knife, and I'll show you how to do the finishing on them. But you can put just about anything. Now, these were just a bunch of travel posters. I decided to do movie posters. I thought whoever owned this building was into movies. Another example here is this little landing, this is a little Moss Landing station. It was an SP station. It was actually in Garibaldi, Oregon. These were built to go on a flat car and be able to be moved on a flat car. And I needed the signs for it. So what I've printed out here is, basically the Moss Landing sign, and you see it up here on this image. I've got it both with and without the distance markers. The ones without were for the ends of the building. And then I decided I wanted to put something else out. The building looked a little naked. So this was a Western Union telegraph and cable office. And that was done as we talked about before. I took a couple of pictures, used a bunch of fonts, played with them. You can see the fonts on here to eventually get down to an image, because the image has white around the outside. I actually used that technique of creating the lines to cut. So you cut a little bit of white right around the outside edge. This is another building built. This is the Standard Oil fuel pier in Monterey, remodeled to be in Moss Landing and slightly shrunk for size. But these pictures, if you look at the signs here, the signs on the ends side of the building, these up here on this is actually a 3D printed carrier up here for the signs. Those are all 3D printed. This is actually a single sheet. And actually what's inside here, these are actually labels for things that are inside the building. And I actually didn't take a picture of that, but I probably should have. There's another thing that this actually is really good for, and that's for making not modeling signs, but other signs. So I'm a modular modeler. So this is, again, 2 4x6 prints. The upper one has a couple of little signs here that are going to go next to push buttons. One rings the church bells. These are those ITT sound modules the guy down in LA sells. The second one is a gas station sound one. I had him do me a couple of modules that only have about 5 seconds of sound on them. So when the public pushes the button, they get gratification, but it doesn't last long. And then I put labels on for the different structures. Thought that was kind of neat for people to tell them what they were. So this is actually the scene with that building, the Standard Oil Wharf, with this basically on the side of the module. Put these on just with a glue stick, and they go on and look pretty good. I threw this in because this was actually last night. Finally got these are going to their first show tomorrow. Got them all in the end racks to carry. So you kind of see all these signs were printed, and I think it's about by 4 or 5 prints. So I think a royal $2.50 to put those on the modules. The one last thing I wanted to talk about is when you print these out and you cut them out with a razor knife, they're paper, and they're actually fairly thick paper, so there's paper inside. So what I do is I use either one of these colored pins from the set that you kind of see behind my thumb there, on my fingers on the upper left, or if it's black, I just use a black Sharpie, and the black Sharpie's got a big, thick nib. And what you do is you just put that right on the edge of the edge of the print, and move it really fast. Don't stop. If you stop, it'll actually disperse, and you'll see it, the color in the print. But if you go just fast, you just color that edge. And so if you look at these 2 Western Union signs down there, the one on the right is what it looks like after it's cut out. The one on the left is what it looks like after you run around it with just a simple ink pen. And what you see is it just totally hides the line at the edge. And then what I do is I keep a little pot of rust on my workbench. I've actually got a spray bottle with alcohol. Just shoot it with a shot of spray of alcohol. Take those and hit them with a little bit of rust on them. 2 coats of dull coat. And it takes the sheen off and gives you that really nice kind of look when you go to put them up. So anyway, that's all we're going to do for this week. So next week we'll talk a little about taking the same kind of concepts and turning them into decals. Any questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts, doing the same things?
Question, maybe I missed it. How do you size your print so that you get the signs a particular O-scale size?
So let me go back here. So if you look on this slide right here, you'll notice this blue line right here
Yeah, I don't
and this
see the
red.
slide.
Not showing yet.
We can't see it.
Oh, I'm
No,
not sharing. I'm sorry. I stopped sharing and now I'm starting. I got to start sharing it. So if you look on the slide right here, see this red line right here? Where my mouse, see where my pointer's moving? See that red
Yes,
line?
yes.
And you'll notice that there's another red line up here. Those red lines, there's a red line here, one here, one here, one here, one here. That's 4 red lines. That each red line is a 1-inch block. The blue lines are the same grid, but they're spaced off by a 1/2 inch the other way. So basically the distance between the 2 red lines is 1 inch or 4 feet in O scale. The distance between a blue line and a red line is 2 feet. So like I said, when you look at Spreckles up here, this image, I mean, this is, you know, this image up here, this is a 2 by 2 foot box. It's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch when it comes in the final print. So that was what it is. Now, the other thing you can do is you can do the ratios and
Okay.
you can do those by clicking and looking at the size, but I found this was the easy way to do it because most of this stuff doesn't need to be accurate more than within a few inches.
Phil, what size, what pound paper? Is this bond paper that it's printed on or thicker?
It's the same thing you would go get prints on from, if you ordered prints, you know, photo prints. Just remember, you used to get a photo print and you get that packet of prints. That's what it is. And it's a heavy paper. It's probably, I don't know, 100 pound paper,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
It's fairly thick,
Shiny?
which is what, but that, no, you get it matte. When you get it matte, it's not shiny.
Oh, okay.
So, and like I said, you know, when you get up close to them, they look very, very, very realistic when you get up close. The key to making them look realistic is that coloring the edges, because it turns out your eye can't see at that distance the corner, when the only reason your eye can see the corner is because there's a color band there. Once the
Mhm.
color band disappears, your eye really can't see it. It's just too fine.
Yeah.